And we're going to do a little sound check here. Make sure we've got some sound coming in here. And test 1, 2, test 1, 2. Let's see if we got sound. Yep, got sound.
Sounds good.
Sound is good. So now that we have sound, we can begin with all of the fun that is this episode, which is episode 30. Welcome to Not Your Typical IT Guys. This is Don't Call IT. Don't call us for IT support. You know how it is. You know how this works. As per usual, I am not your typical IT guy, Brad. He is not your typical IT guy, Chris. And with episode 30, yeah, Donald is not here today. He might be around later on. We'll see if he joins in. With episode 30, we're going to have a little bit of a fun discussion. The topics and new topics are kind of blank if you read in the description. And that's because it's been a hot minute since we've been here. So we want to talk to you guys and just have a little conversation. If you got anything you want to say or you want to do or want us to cover or go over, we'll happily do it. I was recently on an episode of Broken Silicon with Tom from Moore's Law is Dead, and that was a lot of fun. So maybe if some of you guys showed up from that, we appreciate that. We are just three guys with the dream of helping others navigate the crazy world of workstations and other fun work-based technologies. This is episode 30, just so everyone's aware. We've done 29 of these prior to this. And this is, remember kids, benchmarks don't reflect the real world. We're getting into this because, some of the conversations we've had in the past and some of the people we've talked to in the past, it was clear that there was a little bit of lack of knowledge about the entire world of what was going on and how benchmarking works and doesn't work. But we wanted to have some time to share and converse and chat with you guys about that. I've gotten into playing with things in the past and in the future will continue to do the same. Work has kind of gotten in the way a lot recently of us being able to get out and play and do some things like we want to do. I do want to talk about this because this is going to be kind of funny. So when I was getting set up to do the other podcast, Chris, I was having some issues with my sound output. And if you guys have ever used the Intel Extreme tuning utility, you'll know that there's a little monitoring system that it has in it, and you can adjust the latency for delay to how often it pings and pegs. Kind of cool, kind of interesting. One of the things that I noticed in doing that, though, was the other day when I was trying to figure out, well, why am I still getting these clicks and ticks with my USB-based audio device? And it was the Intel XTU's fault. Every time the XTU was updating, I was ticking in audio. And it was because I was, like I said, I had overclocked my processor, but it wasn't the actual overclock. It was the actual thing that was doing the overclock that caused the issue. The monitoring software, opposed to the actual, overclock itself. Because, you guys know, anytime you create instability with an overclock, obviously you have to prepare yourselves for what's going to be some kind of a problem usually. It's not going to always be perfect. And I expected that. What I didn't expect was that I would have these constant ticks and sound. And it was annoying to the point where it would make the sound like if I was just listening to music. And I could not figure it out. I only knew that when I didn't have it overclocked or I didn't have the XTU up, there was an issue. And then I finally adjusted the XTU's latency for the monitoring software and noticed that the ticking picked up in speed or slowed down in speed based on the latency time that I had assigned. I was amazed, kind of baffled, kind of upset. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. Well, Chris, you're also going to be sad to know when I tell you this. I've changed. My monitor setup has changed a little bit again. I don't have two 34-inch ultra wides. I used to have a 34 with the 40 that I have in the 40-inch ultra wide that I have in between with another 34, and then the 43-inch that I have up top. I now have the 34 with the 40-inch ultra wide in the middle, and then I have the 49-inch ultra wide on the right. There's an awful lot of pixels going on in this world over here. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun with a lot of pixels. Got it. You gotta love it, man. And one of the things that's the neatest thing that I think about some of these, modern ultra wides that you can get into, especially the work-based ones. So I have to give credit to this. If you look at the HPs and the Dells, a lot of them these days include USB hubs, but most monitor hubs for the longest time were kind of useless. I don't know if you ever looked at them or saw them, but the ports that you had access to were either directly underneath on the thing, or like if you think about the old iMacs where they had them on the back, you never really had good access to them. Well, these now with some of the ones, so the 49-inch ultra wide that I have from Dell, which is nice, it has two of them. So it has 4 ports total that are available to you. 2 of them are obviously on the back, which, if you got a like a keyboard and mouse dongle, great location for it, in the back out of the way. And if you've got like a cable for like a webcam, great location for it. Those are great for those. However, if you've got like anything else where you want to plug in somewhat regularly, putting it on the back and the bottom and like hidden on the back like that is the worst location. Well, the 49-inch has 2 of them that are directly in front on the bottom that you can kind of reach, feel, and plug into pretty easily. That's, fairly usable, actually, is the way I like to word it. It's kind of nice, kind of cool to see. Definitely glad for the change.
How do the ultra wides work for you from a uh app app standpoint? I've had a couple customers um go back to multiple of flat screens because the ultra wides mess with the just it's just not a good experience.
So with the 49, I can answer that one pretty easily. And that's a good thing to cover. But the 49-inch is the simple one to answer, and that is its setup is in such a way that basically the way you're using it, it's basically 227-inch monitors, 227-inch 2K monitors side by side. And because so this also plays into using Windows 11, because Windows 11 has the built-in splitting tool. That's just super easy. Like technically Windows 10 had like the docking. If you slid it to one side, you could dock 2 things pretty easily. Windows 11 has a lot more control to that. And because of that, I would say that the docking tool with it, I mean, I basically put 2 apps side by side. Matter of fact, if I'm working on a paper or like a research paper or something like that, or I'm working on a presentation or a proposal or something like that, and I need to have like Excel open side by side, it is perfect for that. Because I just dock one to one side, dock one to the other side, and I'm scrolling through both like it's nobody's business. Like it's almost exactly like to me like it used to be when I had 2 24-inch monitors, 25, you know what I mean? Like it was perfect. It's a perfect comparison to that. As far as like the 21:9 type aspect ratios, for CAD, they're great. Outside of CAD and or gaming, that's kind of where I think the differences kind of end. I don't see a lot of value in a 21:9 if you're not using it for CAD or like 3D development of any kind, something like that kind of thing. I think that's really the benefit there, because the space that you would lose in like a standard 16:9 display or 16:10 display in your like your model browser tree, for my example, like your tree of elements over on the one side, that section that you lose there just for that, it always came back to bite me. Like I always wanted to have that extra bit of space back. because I felt like the window then that I was like, for example, an example I love to give is if I go to make a render out of it. Like if I want to go render the image or if I want to just take a screenshot for somebody, for example, I feel like I'm giving them more of a 16 by 9-ish type screenshot now
Mm,
because that 21 by, that 5 by 9 or, that 5 by whatever
yeah,
0 area, I can
yeah.
remove that for the tree and still get my 16 by 9 image. And it makes me feel better about it that way.
Whereas you wouldn't have that ability.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of people are going that way when it comes, like I said, from a development perspective. I mean, 16 by 9 vertical. So I will tell you this. I did play with it for a little while this way, Chris. So I turned my 34-inch vertical, one of my 34s vertical, just to see
Mm.
how I felt about using that. And I was like, a 21 by 9 aspect ratio for vertical like that is the worst. 16 by 9, you really do want that wider spectrum for 16, for vertical looking documents.
Yeah.
It's still usable and I could use it for like monitoring software and stuff, but it wasn't like,
It's just way too long.
it wasn't the same. It wasn't something that I really got used to using that way.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, yeah, it is what it is. Uh, I'm looking over here and I'm kind of scrolling and browsing through it. Uh,
I'm ki- I'm kind of glad that I gave my sales rep the two monitor option. Well, he also has the more space on his desk for
yeah,
it, because those monitors are huge. And I just have my little 34-inch ultra wide that's not curved, which is weird.
it
Um,
is.
but I'm just, doing, email and a couple things, and he's the one that's got, 85 tabs up.
I can believe that feeling and know how much of a pain it can be. I would tell you that from my perspective, I would think that it's funny. I had a new hire that I started working recently, and they were kind of ecstatic over the opportunity using the 49-inch. Because think about it. If you've got a laptop monitor as well,
Yeah.
and you use the laptop monitor, and then you use the 49-inch, it's like having three displays in one.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a unique thing,
Yeah.
and
Especially if the laptop isn't super small.
yeah, oh yeah, especially if it's a 16 or 17-inch monitor for a laptop, which I mean,
Yeah.
you
Most
know,
of yours are.
most of the ones that I go after are that size. I tell you what's interesting to me is, and I don't know about you guys, and I think it's going to be interesting. So I don't know if you've seen it, but it used to be that the maximum power delivery over USB-C was like 100 watts.
Yeah.
Well, now it is. I'd have to go look up the exact spec, but I believe. Let me actually go see it. What is?
Is that with isn't that with 4.0? I think it I think it's
No,
getting
it,
a
it's
bump.
it was just a power delivery standard that changed.
Oh,
That's what, and it changed with USB-C, and it can actually do so. Here it was from yeah. So in 2021, they changed the power delivery specs um, from 100 watts to 240, and now I'm being told that they're actually getting pushed further than that
over
um,
USB.
over USB-C.
Oh.
Uh,
Well,
uh,
that would kind of make sense, because that would enable a pretty high-end video card externally.
well, so where is it? So 3.1. Yes. So USB-C 3.1 got up to 240 watts. I mean, displays, gaming laptops, so on and so forth. And it's basically by allowing 48 volts over 5 amps. That's what got you there.
Hmm.
Um, but it sounds like they might be getting pushed a little further than that too. Um, sounds like 3.2, which was ratified not too long ago, might be coming in the next year or so, or we might actually see more than that. Because I mean, I already have a a USB-C power supply from Dell that delivers 165 watts. So it slips into that in between of the Profile 7 and Profile 6, or no, Profile 6 and Profile 5. It's a little more than 140 and a little high, a little lower than the Profile 6 at 180. But it's coming. Keep that in mind. It is coming. So we should be getting to see at least more power to a degree, which is good. And like you said, being able to do things over USB-C is, well, I mean, imagine if you get some monitors that are able to start transmitting it down that way too. And running everything over USB-C and running monitors that are putting out, 240 watts to a machine. And then the problem and the reason they keep pushing for more over USB-C is because it's a more universal plug. So you don't have to have all the different barrel type chargers and so on and so forth, You can just generically USB-C, Thunderbolt, same thing, and then push the power you want over it. And I mean, the problem that we're running into now is that you've got, Intel-based laptops that really do need 300 watts to really achieve peak efficiency. Because I mean, if you're using a CPU and a GPU and both of them can draw 150 watts, you really do need it.
Math.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but it's a true statement that that's where we're at, I think once again, it's funny because when you think about it, is you start to cripple yourself behind that if you don't have the power, and obviously thermal management matters too. But if you don't have the power delivery, you can't have the thermal management. I mean, if you can't push the 350 watts, or push the 300 watts, I use that term, or 330. That's the power supplies you see on like the high end gaming laptops. If you can't push the 330 watts, then why have the cooling solution for 330 watts?
What's the point in
what's the point in trying to over apply cooling solution if you can't actually achieve the max power efficiency for them too? And I know you probably saw it too. There's a lot of changes coming out. I mean, AMD's got some really cool processors coming out. Laptop wise, their newer APUs, the Dragon Range and stuff like that. That's going to be really neat. I don't think they're going to be. I don't know. I have to see how they work in the real world. It's nice though that they'll finally have AVX 512, which it kind of intrigues me because Intel pulled AVX 512 out of Alder Lake and Raptor Lake. So I'm interested to see what they do there. Since they pulled it out.
I wonder if it's coming back. I don't expect it to come back in Meteor because I feel like Meteor's too close.
I would think it'll probably make its way back around
like
via
Arrow.
Probably if it comes back in Meteor Lake or Arrow Lake, it's because they put a chiplet in there to do it specifically. They put a die. Remember, because they're going to mixed dies now.
Right.
I think that would be the way that they would achieve that, is they put it into a die somewhere.
Right.
That's really the only way you can kind of pull that off if you want to know the truth.
Because they'll be going away from the monolithic. Yeah.
Because trying to put it in the issue that they were saying that you're having is if they did it, the big core is still supported, obviously, but having it where the latency hit that they were taking by keeping it active with the little cores not using it for anything too was it kind of put it at a disparity. So I mean, I get what the purpose is. I get why they're doing the way they're doing it. It'd be nice, like I said, if we could see it come back as like a separate chiplet. But that's the thing with everybody putting all these AI chips in and all this other stuff into CPUs, which is crazy. Like the big push for a CPU that's I almost think it's like, okay, and this is just a use case that I've kind of thought about internally myself. If you had and yes, Arc is no slouch. It's coming around in its own realm from a GPU perspective. But if you had a GPU that was built into a CPU package that was semi pseudo laptop mid range. You know, you had HBM on package like they're doing with some of the Xeon Max solutions, and you had specific AI cores. You're almost moving more towards that Apple Silicon SoC based type
Mm,
setup
hmm
where the GPU for them is not what does machine learning. They have specific AI cores, and
right.
they route those processes through those specific patches and cores. And I think that's from a laptop perspective. Man, it's going to be hard to see discrete GPUs in the next 5 years that are really, unless they're 4080, 4090, RTX 4000, RTX 5000 types. Unless you see that kind of stuff, yeah, it's gonna be hard to see it. It's gonna be really hard to see that kind of prospect for people, because it won't make sense if, like I said, if you got a mid range GPU that can handle that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, and just kind of pondering it from the perspective of what most people do with their laptop from a work perspective, especially. I mean, buying those dadgum T1000s just makes me so mad sometimes because I'm like, I feel like I would almost rather you buy a better CPU that had a better integrated GPU than buy a T1000.
I'm probably about to buy a T1000 for a customer.
Well, and I'm not talking about I'm talking about in a laptop, not necessarily
Oh,
in a
right,
desktop.
right, right, right.
Desktop's a
Yeah,
whole different story
that
because you can make the case of to why to do that for a laptop or for a desktop.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
sometimes it's just you
Laptop,
need monitors. But if you had a
laptop.
laptop,
There's no
the
they're,
benefit isn't there.
they're so bad.
I mean, you're already power constrained, so I mean, you almost get a more power efficient laptop that way. If you just
by
had,
by by taking the T1000 out.
yeah,
Yeah,
but that taking a T1000 out and having a more mid range type, you know, laptop GPU that's integrated into the CPU,
it would save what 50 to 70 watts by
probably.
taking which is a big deal, huge deal for a laptop.
Oh yeah, I mean, it might even say it might save more. It might say, I mean, it might save a little less. It might save 45 watts or 35 watts of a laptop GPU or something like that. But still,
But hey,
anything you don't have to put in there, it saves space. So for all the, as much as I hate this statement too, for all the thinner, lighter crowd too, I, you know, and I got into this conversation with Tom from Morse Law's Dead, and I was saying it this way, I would much rather have a laptop that prioritized giving you the right cooling and the right power supply, regardless of componentry, than having a push to be the thinnest, lightest. Because I mean, and I'll ask you the question too. I'll make you think about it this way. Would you rather have you know, I'm going to use the thickness scale and say, would you rather have a half-inch thick laptop that weighs, you know, 2.8 pounds, or would you rather have a 1-inch laptop that weighs 3 pounds? Because realistically, the 0.2 pounds you're not going to notice.
no, but
And
then the extra half inch of
but the extra half
uh,
inch, that
it's
guess what
big
that is?
deal.
That's cooling capacity everywhere.
Yeah,
And maybe I don't go a half inch. Maybe I just go a quarter inch. So maybe it's a 3/4 inch instead of a half-inch thick
but
laptop.
you're not gonna feel 0.2 pound.
You're not going to feel the 0.2 pounds here. Yes, you'll notice the thickness, and I'm okay with you noticing the thickness if the weight doesn't change, if the weight's not noticeable,
Right.
so long as the weight's not noticeable. Because also imagine if you go into that 2 point, if you go that 0.3 pounds or the 3/4 of an inch as opposed to a half inch, think of the extra battery you can put in there.
And you could always change the chassis to material that weighs less. It probably might cost more,
Eh,
but
Premium to me that's the thing. If you're going to make something premium, then make something premium. Don't
You make it premium.
make it
Don't half-ass it.
make it actually. You know, if you're going to charge me $1,500 for a laptop, but I can get everything in an iGPU and CPU,
Yeah.
give me the extra weight, give me the extra material, the lighter weight materials to make it way close, but keep the thickness. I mean, that's the thing though. Like the thinner we've gone with laptops, and you know, this is way on the tangent of benchmarks don't reflect the real world, but it is kind of on topic because of the way I look at it this way is when you go thinner, one, your whatever material you're using makes it to make it stronger, it's going to cost a lot more usually. And it's going to have to be machined a certain way, so it's going to add cost that way. But once you get that process down, you ultimately miss on the space. The space savings is not that much better for you because that space savings doesn't really give you anything. It just means that you lose cooling capacity.
Right.
And so keeping the thickness, you know, setting a floor, for lack of a better word, of saying, okay, on a premium laptop, 3.75 of an inch is thick is thin enough.
Mm.
You know, this isn't a Chromebook we're dealing with here, guys. This isn't some MacBook Air that's, or, you know, if you're going for ultra power efficiency and you're using a, you know, 10-watt CPU, 15-watt CPU, and it doesn't need the cooling capacity, obviously, and so on and so forth, sure, go thinner. But the purpose of those laptops is not to do work.
Yeah.
You're not doing work. You're browsing the internet.
If um if doing what I need to do in my role, like if having a lighter, smaller laptop means that I can't load my CRM or whatever as fast, and like and then my capacity is worse because my laptop it is bad. Like, make it a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit heavier. I'll be fine,
Well,
but it's got to be quick.
think about the upgradability too. The thinner and lighter things are, of course, what's the first thing we lost when everybody went thin and light, super thin and light? RAM upgradability. Everybody started soldering RAM to the motherboard and saying, "Oh, we'll give you one SODIMM slot." And I'm like, "One SODIMM slot? What the hell are we doing here, guys?"
32 gigs.
Yeah. So now you have unhomogeneous RAM. You have 8 gigs soldered or 16 gigs soldered, and then you put a 32 gig stick in, and you got 48 gigs of RAM. That doesn't make any sense at all. That doesn't take advantage of dual channel memory.
Right.
So let's get back to the basics and reality. And I have to give Dell credit for this because I've had conversations with them over and over and over again, and I'm looking forward to seeing the new modules. CAM is impressive. Compressed access memory, that is going to be that is the new future of laptop memory, and it's going to allow for quote unquote thinner and lighter, but it's also going to allow for higher capacity, higher bandwidth, all that stuff in the same chassis size. So once again, don't go thinner anymore, guys. Like let's quit going thinner, because here's the thing. Once again, upgradability. If you start going thinner, you lose the number of NVMe slots you put on there.
Mm-hmm.
Which once again, that's the whole huge perk in general to having a integrated GPU on the CPU is that, guess what? You get more actual PCI Express lanes available to you. Well, if you're going to have those extra PCI Express lanes available to you, but you're not going to take advantage of them by giving me the 4 NVMe slots, like, don't change the chassis just because. This whole push to go to make a 13-inch laptop fit a 15-inch screen blows my mind. It truly does. I mean, I'd rather have a little bit more of a 15-inch laptop and get some more out of it. But so moving forward, so a lot of comparisons have been coming out since Sapphire Rapid launched, and we haven't had a lot of conversations since then. Like I said, we've kind of been off. So that's kind of where the basis of this came from. Was Sapphire Rapids is out now. There are people that are doing real world comparisons to them. I mean, we've got some real world comparison testing coming up pretty soon. It sounds like AMD might launch a new Threadripper that's not Pro. based on some of the leaks that are
Mm-hmm.
out there.
Could.
I think it's dumb at this point. I really do. You know, there'll be a lot of people that might jump down my throat when I say that, but I think launching regular Threadripper right now is it's pointless. It's because if nothing else, to those people that bought Threadripper 3000, because it's going to be on a new platform, on a new socket, it'll be a straight up slap in the face to them. Straight up slap in the face. Because they kind of were like, well, we're not going to get another Threadripper now because we've got this, you know, Threadripper that we got now is the last of that generation, basically. So my thing is, at this point, you've already slapped everybody in the face. Just make Threadripper Pro and move on.
Yeah.
If you want to make an enthusiast version that's overclockable, like Intel did with Xeon W, do that. Absolutely do that. You know, give them the opportunity to do some for the community to be able to do the overclocking that they want with a unlocked version of it. But launching just a normal Threadripper right now to me just seems silly.
After having taken it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you seem silly and launch something in response to Intel.
Yeah.
Which everyone said you've said to everyone out there that this is not in response to Intel. This is our own plans and things. Well, don't go back on your word at this point. Stick to your guns. Now, if you want to make some cool some other cool versions like you know, where some of the chiplets are AI, that'd be cool. Or where some of the chiplets are you know not the normal setup. That's where I think that Threadripper could really be interesting. You know, 32 core, or you know, because they go up to 90, they should go up to 96 if it follows the path for, you know, Zen 4. But go up to 32, you know, go up to 32 core version and then have these versions that have extra chiplets on board. That'd be pretty cool if you ask me. Basically, for lack of a better word, launch some models that are, call it what you want to call it, fun.
Yeah.
I think fun is the term that I'll use in this situation.
Kind of like what they do with Epic with the F line.
Yeah.
Or you know, not quite to the extent of what Intel has done on Sapphire with all their accelerators, but you know, just not the normal, you
Agreed.
know, let's increase core count.
I think, yeah, and I think, like I said, I mean, something like that would be great. Something like, well, you know, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day too. X3D, like, you know how they I don't know if you saw, there was a thing that showed where they originally had a 7950 X3D that also had the, what do you call it, Chris? It also had the extra chiplet on there for memory. You know, maybe for example, that's something you could do. Maybe make sure that you don't. But what I don't want to see him do is go and do, okay, let's do a 32 core where 16 of the chip, you know, 2 of the chiplets instead of all 4 of the chiplets get the X3D extra cache. No, put it on all 4.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, and this is once again, you know, this is that whole benchmark conversation at this point, because when it comes to benchmarking something, having cores, yes, for example, the 13900K is faster at doing certain tasks that I used to do with my 1090XE. It is faster than the 1090XE that had all big cores, but was, you know, basically Skylake based. Yes,
Right.
that's true. However, don't look at it in the sense of different cache levels mean that different cores will perform completely differently, because the latency penalty in between the 2 core sets is massive. So rather than splitting it up that way, say, okay, all right, we'll make some, there you go, there's one of your Threadripper options. We'll make a Threadripper Pro option that has all X3D cores on it and hits, you know, 4.5 gigahertz, you know, that kind of thing. and maybe don't push it to 64 core or something like that. You maybe keep it at something that's a little smaller so that you have better cooling capacity on it, so that you can run the clock speeds a little higher. But most applications, unlike gaming, gaming is one of the few things where it's like, all right, let me just take the best core I can and use it and go with it. But even still, it's not the same to me. What was I looking at the other day? There's a good thing that I was reading the other. Oh, Chris, I think we're gonna have to move to Charlotte
Why?
because there's gonna be
The micro.
they're building a micro center in Charlotte. That's gonna be awesome. I shared that with you and Chet Donald. I was like, that's a little bit of what we all want now. It'd be, there's one in Atlanta for me. So where I'm at's directly in between Atlanta and Charlotte. And yes, there's one in Atlanta, but I traveled towards Charlotte a heck of a lot more than I travel towards Atlanta. And so being able to go to Charlotte to be in Charlotte for work or something like that, be like, you know what, I'm going to swing by Micro Center and see what they got laying around. And my bank account's going to take a massive hit. It'll be fun, though. It'll be fun.
That would mean that sometimes when we like now I can't buy from Micro Center because um still gonna buy it probably mostly from distribution, but nice to have an option.
Well, it's, anytime it's like you're not going to drive to pick something up that way. Like that's where that's a perk. Okay, you get somebody that wants something that's already at a Micro Center, you can just drive and pick it up, right? It's the time savings of being able to go to somewhere. I use Best Buy as my favorite example. Best Buys are great because you can drive to a Best Buy and pick up something you need. Whether yes, it might be more expensive for certain things, but when you have a need for something last minute, it's just nice to be able to go get it. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Unmodified. Hey, that's interesting. I just saw that.
So we just finished up well, we're actually not done because it locked up. But when we were running the 3435, the 16 core Xeon 3000,
Yep.
did not break 58 in IDA 64, fully enabled.
Wow.
It's damn gold.
That's impressive.
Now, granted, after about Andrew configured the RAID array overnight, and then I came in the morning and ran the stress test, and it was doing that for about 2 hours, and then about at the 2.5 hour mark, after it was done with IDA, it was just I left the monitoring timer on, blocked up entirely, whole thing.
Oof.
I had to mash the power button, so we gotta fix that. But we had another build with the 36 core that didn't break. Somehow the 16 core ran hotter than the 56 than the 36 core.
Okay.
I don't know why, but um the 36 core, I don't think that thing broke 48. It's just insanely cold.
I mean, hey, it's because it's the 4 tile. So anything over 32 core is the XCC die. So it's gonna be. It's gonna.
Oh, more. Okay.
Which yeah, I have a transition this over so you can see this. This is something cool. So I don't know if you saw the article though, but they're having to. They have a bug on the 32 core and below dies, MCC dies.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing some work with that right now to fix it, um, which should be good. Should be good. It should take care of everything. But here's the actual layouts, which is kind of nice to see. But yeah, so if you're at a 36 core, you basically have the 4 tile setup. So it's gonna run cooler because it's not running the same. It's
Yeah,
basically, yeah.
it was astonishingly cold. I'm curious about the 56 cores in the order.
We'll see.
One is one's gonna get it all in one. One is gonna get uh, the the ever loving a snot overclocked out of it.
This is what's crazy to me is this one. 64 gigs of HBM2 on the 4 tile. And I do forget that the XCC does technically go up to 60 cores, but yeah, no, why would you want that? I'm betting that on the XCC dies that are 56 core, the ones they disable are the innermost. They might disable something else, but I would think it would be the innermost because that's where the most heat would be. Or either way, having HBM is going to be nice to see how that goes.
I'm curious to see how that runs.
Oh,
Very, very
I'm
curious.
very much looking forward to it on my end. Trust me, that'll be
I bet.
something. That'll be something to see because it'll just change things out. But no, there's an issue that they had the MCC dies, which would go up to 32 cores, and the issue that they were having with them is that there's some kind of a bug that they're working out, and so they've actually stopped. They stopped shipping them initially, just to kind of wait to see, to fix to make sure the firmware fix did everything it wanted to do without like having issues. But yeah, I mean it's not that big of a deal. 12 steppings. That's interesting. Well, yeah, it's 12 steppings because guys, you're trying to fix some stuff. It is what it is. But all that being said, that's a kind of a nice thing. No, G7's coming out in GDDR7 comes out in the first half of 2024. That'll be interesting.
Oh yeah, I think that's awesome.
Did you actually see that there's a PNY, not a PNY, that there's a blower based 4090?
Another one, like yeah.
I mean,
I
I'm good to see that. I'm good to
I
see that.
I'm a little worried about the cooler and the 450 watt, but
It's just gonna sound like a dang, turbojet. That's okay. No, I think the funny thing is, there's another thing here talking about NVIDIA's roadmap for GPUs won't arrive until 2025. No, no. Sorry, guys. No shit. You really expected the follow update Ada Lovelace to come any faster than, and it'll probably launch at the end of next year just because that's the way they usually do. But I mean, do you really expect it to come in less than
there's
2 years from
no
now?
there's no reason for them to
Yeah,
put
there's no reason for
Barrow whatever it's gonna be called.
yeah that pushing something to come out every 2 years is fine. I mean, people wanting things a successor in 2024 are just they're full of it. Like, I mean, just think we don't even have from a professional side standpoint, we don't have a RTX 5000, RTX 2000, any of that other stuff yet. I mean,
Mm,
that's still yet to show up for us.
I've got at least one order waiting on 8 to 5000s.
And it'll be interesting to see what kind of specs we get there. I mean, it's still kind of out there, still not really known.
Mm.
Definitely not talked about. I mean, I saw there was a rumor a while back that it might have 32 gigs, which okay, that'd be huge. I mean, that'd be a huge upgrade if that happens. I'd love to see that. That would make me juice a little bit. I'd probably try to get a couple of them myself because that would be. But then again, it boils me back down to the whole laptop conversation. If laptops aren't going to have more than 16 gigs of VRAM, why do we keep making these things? You know? But it is what it is. We'll see where it goes. Yeah, that rumor I think was from like January. I hope. Who knows? Like I said, they got to do something. Obviously, we have the W7900 and the W7800, which, all comparisons aside, the W7900 seems to be competing with the uh, RTX 6000, ADA 6000 a little bit. I mean, how much? That's still yet to see. And keep in mind, guys, that's one again. I mean, if you're comparing, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's see. I want to get those two things up real quick. Where is ADA? RTX 6000 X, and then come on, y'all. Go. AMD W700. Let me put you on the right side. Let me put you on the left side. Let me go to share. Transition. So I got them side by side. All right, let's get down here to where I love how when it gives you relative performance, and the 7900 doesn't even beat a 4090. It's funny to me. It's you know, if I go down here,
Oh,
go ahead.
so I had pulled up Tech Power Up earlier today. We were looking at what one of our lost leads uh, was currently going and using, well, had been at the time, and what we were recommending. I think they had a 950, and we were attempting to recommend a 4070 Ti. Um, that- Obviously, there's like 5 6 years of age in those cards. But the my sales rep hadn't really looked at hardware much. It's just 76 ROPS, 7600 ROPS for like what 5 years does.
Interesting. Well, you have more memory bandwidth on the RTX 6000 ADA 6000.
Okay,
You
figured as
have
much.
they both have 48 gigs. They're both on a 384-bit bus.
How does how does the ADA have? It must just be how they calculate the bandwidth.
No, it's faster effective memory clock. 20 gig
Oh,
20 gigabit per second versus 18 gigabit per second. They just use faster G6. So,
okay, okay,
um,
that's right.
this is what cracks me up.
More shaders on the ADA.
Well, obviously there's going to be more shaders, but but the pixel rates are about the same, although the texture rates are not the same. Although the FP16 is faster, um, but it's 2 to 1
The
instead of 1 to 1.
The FP64 is notable on the
Yep,
Radeon.
yep. FP64 is same. FP32, however, is notable difference as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's gonna boil back down to once again, what's your application doing? That's the real bit, you know. It is.
I, but it's a triple. I was gonna say I could see this kind of being like a kind of an HPC card with the higher FP64 performance,
Oh yeah.
but the triple slot is going to hurt it in in racks
Yep.
because you can't put as many in there.
And it makes you wonder why it needs. Well, it's a simple reasoning as to why. So if you remember the design of the Ada and the RTX A6000, it's drawing air from both sides of the card on the A6000 and the Ada 6000.
Do they not have a top fan
Now,
on the AMD?
it's not that it's a top fan, it's that there's an open slot on the back of the board.
Right.
They probably don't have
They don't
that
have
on
that.
the W7900, and that's probably why it's not got as much cooling capacity for the dual slot setup. I can see some little bits of issues there with that, and that could be why. We'd have to see it, you know. But yeah, once you, like you said, going with the triple slot. I mean, if you really look at it, see really and truthfully, if you look at the triple slot design, the top of the actual blower doesn't block that blocks it all. The top slot's not really doing it. It's really more like a 2.5 wide card instead of a triple wide, and they just decided to take up the extra space. I mean, they're both built on the same process node. They're both recommended for the same resolutions. It's a Navi 31 processor. It's great. It's all good and well.
There's probably a patent on that top cut.
It's probably something like that. Well, it's not probably not even a patent. It's once again, it's probably if they had to go with a 2.5 wide slot to get the airflow that they needed. And if you're already 2.5 wide, why not just make it triple?
Yeah,
that's really what you're looking at. And it does have a much higher base clock. I'll give it credit for that. And NVIDIA clocks it down a substantial amount. It's still got a higher boost clock, just barely, but like I said, I'm and
Does the
it's getting shaders and TMUs, all that stuff. Same ROPS number.
so RT cores does what's is there an AMD equal to like a tensor?
I don't know how you do that, how you compare that.
Because it doesn't have supposedly tensor cores.
And the ROCm thing is what so I don't know if you saw that. So RDNA 3 is actually getting ROCm support.
What's that?
That's their kind of CUDA software-esque base setup.
Oh, right.
So the ROCm support is kind of nice. It'll allow some more functionality. I mean, once again, the whole point that I was making with all of this is that it's more of the design stack is more of neither one of these should be like primarily AI cars. They're gonna excel at AI, I'm sure, and take up an awful lot less space than a couple of 4090s, unless you know where I'm getting ready to go with this, unless you end up doing the dumb thing that is water cooling 4090s to make sure that they take up less space that way.
But you can still only do 2 because of the power draw.
Unless you have nine power supplies, yeah. I mean,
which you can't do in a normal case.
No, I know. It's funny to me when everybody talks about, and that's the thing, when everybody talks about these cards now, that's what they talk about. They talk about their performance from this perspective. They don't talk about it from basically, like I said, they don't talk about it from the power perspective. They don't talk about it from a performance perspective. They talk about it from an AI perspective. And I'm sitting here going, is that really all we care about? AI?
No.
I mean, if we start going into shortages again because of everybody buying things for AI, I'm gonna be sad a little bit.
Yeah, it's yeah. Like I really don't care about NVIDIA being short on H100s. I'm probably never going to do a system with an H100, and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
But keep your nasty paws away from my 86000.
Well, all it's gonna do is make the 5,000, 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, whatever the cars they end up making. It's just gonna make their supply shorter too. I mean, what they've done is they've shifted capacity from making these other cards, and that's probably why we don't have an A to 5,000 yet. And it's probably they're waiting. They're still building some stock of it, but waiting.
Mm.
And I hate that. I really want to see the next generation of other cards coming out there. It's been a little bit longer than it needed to be, but it's time to see something interesting. But yeah, I mean, really, when you think about the benchmarks that are out there, though, and you start to compare those benchmarks, the thing that cracks me up the most is that just looking at that, like, because now SolidWorks gets called into it all the time, and I'm like, SolidWorks, really, guys? That's we're gonna use SolidWorks as our benchmark. I mean, don't get me wrong, SolidWorks is a very massively used selection, but you're still only using one portion of that software when if you can't do the same thing in its competitor, why
Yeah,
it
and the SolidWorks, well, yeah, the SolidWorks benchmark isn't super helpful.
because as I found at least, and this is just in my testing, when you look at a GPU for CAD packages, what the benchmark tells you doesn't really matter because it's just using certain singular features that 99% of the user base never use. And that's fact. I mean, I would love to do a lot of fluid flow and stress analysis simulations that require the GPU to spool up to 100% for 5 minutes. Nobody does that on that software. And if they, like I said, it's a specialty case. Now, if you will operate in that specialty case, yes, you need to be using the one that follows the benchmark because it's probably going to be better. However, if you're not using the specialty case, if you got something else going on, then guys, I mean, you don't have to go with something a little bit different. Look
Yeah,
at look at some
like
other options.
we most of our SolidWorks customers are doing mold design or general part design, and they are perfectly fine with a A2000, 6 gig, 12 gig, totally fine. We're attempting to get into uh um the CAM and the CAE bit of the world,
Computer automated
and
engineering.
more
Yep,
more more ANSYS and whatnot,
I got you.
um, which could use a more powerful video card. But
Agreed. Well, what's funny to
yeah,
me is, and if we internally we've been having this conversation back and forth a lot. Is it'd be nice if the GPUs themselves would start to, what's the term I'm thinking of here? It would be nice if the machines and the GPUs that we use would start to take advantage, or the software would be able to say, okay, so like you said, I'm gonna use Inventor and SolidWorks here as the example. So Inventor with Autodesk Inventor and SolidWorks, those two pieces of software, basically an A2000 or A4000 SFF or A to 4000, sorry, SFF, or a 4000 series is about the top of what you really ever need, compute wise. It doesn't need anything
mhm,
more than that compute wise. However, if they would go back and utilize so there's certain features where if you would they removed certain features from the software back in the day because in order to be able to utilize it, you had to have a lot of frame buffer and a lot of powerful graphics to do it. And they're like, well, we don't want to do that because if people use this, we'd rather go with this other tool that's easier on the requirements. And to me, I would say no, go back to the old way. Like, put people in that are using the software that way. Make them go ahead and get the better equipment because it's going to make the experience they work with it in that much better. Taking away that experience that they have to work in and making it harder is never the key.
mm, mhm.
So you got to look at things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said, using GPU benchmarks these days are kind of hilarious too, because if you really look at like the 7900 XT and the, the 4090 and things like that, more and more software packages are starting to say, hey, we actually want you to use the one that's got the drivers. We're going to slow these cards down. And you don't recognize it either. But I've had some conversations with several people recently where they've said, hey, look, yeah, I use this normally. It doesn't work like it used to. The newer version of this software is all of a sudden not working as well on non-workstation GPUs. And to the point saying like, okay, a 4090 versus an A2000, the A2000 is performing better. Yeah, that kind of questioning. Throw your eyes up and go, that doesn't make any sense, does it? That should never be the case. But it is, because all of a sudden the drivers are better. There's better support from the driver that way. So you never know. Things could change a lot on us in the near future. Keep an eye out for all the benchmarks. But I say this, it is the 4th of July weekend. We do have 4th of July on Tuesday. Are you going to blow anything up this year, Chris?
We might.
I mean,
It's
hey,
possible.
you got to break the fireworks out every now and then. I don't think I'm going to blow anything up, but ultimately, I hope everybody does have a happy 4th of July. I figure we can kind of wrap this one up. We've been on about an hour or so, but you and I are going to get out there and play a little Battlefield since it's Friday night. So for all those that have been watching, we had a blast. We hope you enjoyed it. We will see y'all in the next time. And yeah, we're,
Have a good
as
weekend.
usual, have a good week.